Hello, good morning, everyone. And how are you doing today? Let's confirm that we're all on the same page. If you can see my screen and you can hear my voice clearly, kindly type in hi in the comment section so that we can get the session started. If you can hear my screen, I want to. Okay, thank you, Carrie. Good morning. 4741, good morning to you. Okay, thank you very much for that confirmation, Ashitaka. All right, you're welcome. I'm fine, thank you. And trust you're doing well, Ashitaka. All right, great. So I want to welcome you all to yet another promising session of Extreme Speed Life, hosted by my humble self, Sharif Daramola. And as usual, I will be taking you on a trading journey in the next 1 hour, where we shall be evaluating the financial market using technical parameters to identify trading opportunities lining up for us today. And before we go into the details of what our expectations will be today, obviously we are going to be looking at the pairs we've been monitoring since Monday, and we are going to be seeing how well they are doing. In fact, we had a couple of moves in the last 24 hours, which we have been waiting for quite a while now, but thank goodness everything appears to be falling in place. So without further ado, let's dive into the chart and let's see what is happening at this point in time. And also, I want to chip in here. If you have any pair you want us to look at, feel free to drop in within the comment section, and I will try to inculcate it into our plans for today. So let's move into the chart and let's see what is happening here. So the first pair we are going to be looking at, as usual, is the US oil. And what do we have here on the US oil? Well, we had a scenario we are looking forward to yesterday. And where were we yesterday? We were around this point yesterday. During yesterday's session, we were, I think, around here, right? We were around here yesterday. So we were looking at a scenario after we cited the breakout of the $84.50 area, where we said if price does multiple rejection of this level and price comes into the demand zone, which was identified around the support level of this ascending channel, we will be looking forward to a bullish momentum from that point. But in the last 24 hours, we saw price come back into the demand zone, but still at this point in time, price is yet to move in that direction. So at this point, we had no activity on the US oil. And for those who took advantage of that impulsive move yesterday, that is with this move that happened yesterday, well, you would have probably taken some profit or been taken out at break even. So on the US oil, we still not yet in the positive side, neither are we in the negative side at this point in time. So heading into the New York session today, what is going to be our plans going forward? Well, the first thing we want to do here is to scale up to the higher time frame so that we can look at it from a technical perspective and see what is actually happening, and also be able to share the perspective we have here with those who are not part of the session since the beginning of the week. So let's dive into the daily time frame and let's see what is happening. So on the daily time frame, what do we have here on the US oil? Before I do that, I think it's appropriate I delete some of those signs here so that hold on, so that Okay, so that we can have a clean chart. So I think I delete this one too as well. And let's see things like this. Okay, so on the daily time frame, what do we have here on the daily time frame? On a long-term perspective, if we are going to be looking at it, well, price has been on a very strong bullish momentum. And this is evident with the bullish trend line we were able to identify here after connecting the series of higher lows at this point. However, since the month of August stroke this present moment, we have noticed that price did somewhat rejection of that bullish trend line. Somewhere in the month of August, we saw multiple rejection of that bullish trend line with the intention that price might be going to the downside. But something interesting happened as we saw the breakdown retest of that bullish trend line in the last couple of weeks. Now, the breakdown retest of that bullish trend line signaled a bearish momentum, and when we scale down to the 4 hours time frame, we were able to identify that price has been caught within a descending channel since the mid-month of August. As we can see, price has consistently respected this channel. We saw it here, we saw the scenario, and it appears this channel wanted to be rejected, as we see multiple rejection of the $83 level in the last 2 weeks here. So we've seen multiple rejection of this level with the intention that we might be having a trend continuation to the upside. But before we do that, please don't forget that we have a key level right here at $86.50, which has been a major determinant of price action in the past. If we look at the month of August here, we saw how this key level has been a support niche for participants in this market. As we can see, every time price comes within that area, we've been seeing bullish momentum at that point. And during the month of September here, I think the first weeks of September, we finally saw a breakdown of that key level, though we had a situation where we saw price climb back up in above that key level, but it was immediately met with stiff resistance by the sellers to respect the resistance level of the descending channel to push price right back below the key level at $86.50 area. And since then, we have continued to witness multiple rejection of the key level to continue to send price going to the downside. Now, with this information we have here, and if we zoom further into what we have been witnessing since the beginning of the week, this is what we have here since the beginning of the week. We saw the scenario here. Price started at around the key level area, and we have been witnessing a consolidation phase around that area. Since price, we see multiple rejection of that key level, price came to as far as the $83 level, which is now the demand zone for the week. We can see, so it's caught within a consolidation phase right now, and it appears that there is an indecision in this market, as participants in this market are yet to make a decision on how to move forward from this point. So we can see that we've been witnessing multiple rejection of that key level at the $86.50 area. We can see that, and also this rejection also shares a confluence with the bearish trend line that we have here. Now, another thing we also want to take into consideration here is the $83 level, which has been a very strong demand niche. Every time price comes within this area, we have continued to see multiple rejection of that level. So what this simply means is that despite the fact that we've been having selling pressures right below the $86.50 level here, we can see that the buyers are actually making sure that price does not fall below the $83 area, hereby having a demand zone around this point. So there is a possibility that we could be having a bullish momentum from here, which we can't tell if it's going to break above the $86.50. So what I'm saying here is this: there is a likelihood that we could have a bullish momentum here during the later part of this week, probably today or the later part of this week, and we don't know if that move is going to break above the $86.50 area, or we could have another rejection of this area to push price to the downside. So now, with price sitting right within a strong demand zone right now, what we want to be looking forward to is a bullish momentum. And the reason why that is obvious because of how we've been witnessing multiple rejection of this area in the last couple of days now. So what I'll be saying here is we want to scale down to a lower time frame to look out for structures that will align with a bullish momentum here. Before we go into the lower time frame, I also want to share with you the possibility of the other perspective that might is likely to happen here if we don't have that bullish momentum come in. So now if we have a breakdown of that demand zone, that is price breaks down of that demand zone, taking out all the buy position around this area, then likely that is likely going to be a bearish signal that we will need to wait for confirmations to happen in the form of a retest of structure before we want to join the decline to the downside. But if that does not happen, we want to be looking for buy opportunities on this one. So how do we take advantage of a buy opportunity if we don't see price break down that demand zone today? So now let's scale down to the 1 hour time frame so that we can see things clearly and be able to identify a structure that we can use to guide our actions going forward. So now on the 1 hour time frame here, what do we have at this point? So I was able to identify a structure right around the $83.50 area. Hold on a second. Let's label this area for the sake of clarity. So we have the $83.50 area here. Let's place it at the right hand side of our screen so that we can see it clearly. So we have a level here, and the reason why we have that level here, first of all, is right above that bullish trend line. Sorry, it's right above that demand zone which we identified on the daily time frame, remember? And then if we look closely into the structure here, we can see how this level has been a major determinant of price action. As soon as price comes within this area, we can see that there is a buying power around that area which has been pushing price to the downside, to the upside rather. So we can see, though we had a breakdown here and then we had the retest of structure at this point, but in the last couple of hours now we saw an engulfing candle that took price right above that $83.50 area. So with this in this regard, we want to be looking forward to buying opportunity right above that level. So what this simply means is that, allow me to put this here so that we name it buy. So we want to buy right above that level. And the reason why we are looking at buying opportunity at this point is simply because of one, the demand zone which I shared with you earlier. And then if we look at this, we can see this impulsive move to the downside here. We saw the first one here. We saw the second one here. We saw the third one here. Hold on. We saw the third one here. And you can see every time price rejects $86.50 area, we saw price come back into the structure. And what have we seen here in the last 24 hours? We noticed that we have seen reversal pattern from this point. So we saw our price rejected this area a couple of times where we saw the reversal pattern, and then we saw the breakout of that structure, giving us a signal of a potential reversal, potential bullish momentum here. Now price has come back into the structure, so I'm looking forward to price coming right above this area for us to be looking forward to a bullish momentum at this point. So with this scenario here, and if price moves as expected here, we want to be having our take profit target right around the $86.50 area. In the meantime, we don't want to be too ambitious here, as we don't know how price is going to relate to this level at the $86.50 area. Is it that we are going to be having a breakout of structure to send price going to the upside, or we could be having multiple rejection of that level to send price going to the downside one more time? So we don't know what is going to happen at that point. But one thing for sure is, if price breaks above the $83 level, we want to be taking a buy position with a TP target right around that area, which will be dovetailing to about 300 pips, which is not bad anyways. And let's see what happens at the key level at the $86.50 area, and whatever happens there will now determine if we want to be joining the bullish momentum, we want to be adding more position to a bullish momentum, or we want to be looking for selling opportunities from that point. So this is what we are going to be looking forward to today, and let's see how price action will play out in that regard. If you have any question regarding what I just talked about, feel free to drop in your comment or your inquiry in the comment section, and I will be willing to be of help in that regard. So let me quickly run through the charts and see what is happening. Let's take the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions whatsoever before we move on to the next pair. Yeah, Nina, of course, lots going on in the USDJPY. Remember I told you about the selling momentum we've been expecting since Monday. It appears um, price will begin to move in that direction, but we will see. We will look at that, I think, in a moment anyways. Okay, Ashitaka, glad to hear that. Okay, GBP pairs. Okay, let's see how we can do that. 359, good morning. How are you? It's been a while since I saw you. I didn't see you yesterday, I guess. Trust you're doing well. Okay, so in the absence of no questions, I guess we move on to the next pair. So what's the next pair we are going to be looking at? Sorry, hold on a second. I want to... sorry. I'm trying to... Okay, so on the US Tech, I had an opportunity here on the US Tech yesterday where we were able to take about 350 pips thereabouts on this one. And what did we see and what was our expectation yesterday? Remember, we were expecting a bullish momentum yesterday where we were saying that we were around where yesterday? Let's see. We were around the around this point yesterday, around the $11,850 area, right below this area, and we identified this key level at the $11,850 area after we cited the bullish signal we saw here after the breakout of this descending channel, and price came back to do a retest to structure here, and I was saying that let's look out for buying opportunity at this point. And remember what I told you here yesterday, that as soon as price moves in our favor, we want to be moving our stop loss to break even to protect our position against any sudden pullback that might likely happen due to the long-term bearish perspective here on the US tech. And so lo and behold, things moved as we have just projected. Price moved in our direction in the first instance, and price moved to as far as the key level at the $12,000 area, which dovetailed to about 140 pips thereabout before we started seeing reversal pattern at the $12,000 area to push price to the downside. So for me on this one, I took this buy opportunity here, and what we saw, I moved my stop loss to break even, and I was actually taken out at the sudden pullback that happened. And because of this, and this was as a result of the FOMC results that happened yesterday. Remember I showed you, hold on a second, let's look at it together. So we had a scenario yesterday which I shared with you, where I said that we will be looking forward to the FOMC and the federal interest rate decision yesterday, which is likely going to have a major impact on the price movement. And lo and behold, that happened as expected. So what we saw here was moved into the $12,000 area. Price rejected that area. Let me show you what I saw on the lower time frame. I think on the 15 or the yes, on the 15 minutes time frame, sorry, on the 5 minutes time frame, I saw multiple rejection of this area. Here we saw the first one, we saw the first rejection, we saw the second rejection, and we saw the third rejection, fourth rejection, fifth rejection, and boom, price went to the downside. So it was quite a sharp one. If you are taking advantage of that move, kudos to you for identifying that opportunity. And now that we have done that and taken a profit here, how do we intend to, hold on a second, what's happening here? So now that we're at this point, how do we intend to continue this trade? Well, let's first of all look at what is happening on the higher time frame, after which we'll now go ahead to make a decision here. So on the daily time, sorry, on the 4 hours, sorry, let's go to the daily time frame. Yeah, on the daily time frame, it's obvious that price action has been on a bearish momentum since the beginning of the year, and this is evident after drawing the bearish trend line that we used as our yardstick here. Now, in addition to that structure we have here, we have the $12,000 mark, which has been a major determinant of price action. In the month of June, we saw the evolution of a reversal pattern here, something that looks more like a double bottom structure. We saw the breakout of the neckline at the $12,000 area. We saw a retest of structure which pushed price to as far as the $13,700 area. And since price tested that bearish trend line there, we saw how price moved drastically down back into the $12,000 area. We saw a rise, and then we witnessed a breakdown of structure during the last week trading session to give us a bearish signal. So ever since breaking down the $12,000 area and since last week trading session, we have seen multiple rejection of that level. Let's go to the 4 hours time frame to see things more clearly. So we saw the breakdown of that key level last week. We saw the breakdown here, and as we can see, we have continued to witness multiple rejection of that level. Even in fact, yesterday we saw a sharp rejection of the $12,000 area to push price right back into the resistant level of this descending channel here. And from the look of things here on the 4 hours time frame, you can see that we had the breakout of that channel here during the first days of this week. And from a technical standpoint, whenever we cite a breakout of structure like this, we expect that price will come back to do a retest of that trend line, which already has happened. Even though we had this retest of this trend line, that does not mean I'm looking forward to a bullish momentum here. And the reason why that is simply because of the I'm sorry for the break in transmission, please. So where are we? Following the breakout of that structure here, like I said, we saw the breakout of the structure. We expect that price will come back to do a retest of structure, which actually has happened in the last 24 hours here. But because we have a retest of structure here, I'm not leaning on a bullish momentum, in the sense that we are on a very strong bearish momentum on a long-term perspective here. As you can see, price has consistently found lower lows and lower highs. And as you can see, after the breakdown of that very important key level we identified on the daily time frame at the $12,000 mark, we can see that price has consistently rejected that level in the last 72 hours thereabout. We can see price has consistently rejected that level. So for me at this point in time, this is giving me a clue that the sellers are very, very strong at this particular level. So what we want to be looking forward to right now is a selling momentum. And where is that going to be? Even though see what happened yesterday, we had this impulsive move to the downside. Hold on a second, let me show you. So we had this impulse leg to the downside here, and a retest of the structure is likely going to be the initiation of a retracement phase. So we want to be looking forward to something like this, probably price come back into our golden zone area that is somewhere around the 50 and the 78.6% of the previous impulse leg, which I'm going to be identifying in a minute, after which we'll be looking forward to a trend continuation to the downside. So now that we have this perspective here on the higher time frame, how do we intend to trade the US tech today? Well, this is going to require patience at this point, as we want to be doing, the first thing we want to be doing here is to identify that golden zone of this impulse leg. So we have this impulse leg that started here into this point. So what we want to do right now is to bring out our Fibonacci retracement tool, run it through the impulse leg here, and then we want to be identifying somewhere around the 50 and the 78.6% of the previous impulse leg. So we have somewhere between here and here. Hold on a second. So we identify this area as our sell window. Let's give this a green color. Then we give this a yellow. All right. Oh no, let's put it right inside that box. Okay, so we have something like this. So what we are going to be looking for today is price coming back within this area, where we look out for retest to structure that will be sending price going to the downside. And if you look closely into this current setup we have here, remember we had this temporary bullish trend line that was drawn during the early days of this week that price has been respecting. We saw our buyers has been respecting that bullish trend line, but unfortunately yesterday we saw the breakdown of that trend line. And from a technical standpoint, whenever we cite a breakdown of a structure like this, we expect that price is likely going to come back and do a retest of structure, where we are going to be looking out for patterns on lower time frame that will be supporting a trend continuation to the downside. So this is what we are going to be looking forward to this week. And let's go scale down to a much lower time frame, and let's see if we're beginning to have a structure that aligns with that level. So going down to the 1 hour time frame here, let's see if price is actually moving in that direction. Okay, so we are right on the 1 hour time frame right now, and we can see we have witnessed the rejection retest of that structure that was broken out on Tuesday. Here we saw the retest of structure here, and like I said, this is likely going to transpose into a reversal pattern that will be sending price right into the sell window here. So what I'll be advising us to do here on the US tech is to be patient enough to wait for price to come back right within the $11,780 area and somewhere around the $11,950 area, where we want to be looking for selling opportunities. And remember, we still have this key level around this area at the $11,850 area, which has been our yardstick since the beginning of the week. So let's see how price is going to relate with this area. So if we continue to see, if price climbs up and continue to see multiple rejection of this area, or it could be a reversal pattern on lower time frame, please and please, we want to be joining that bearish momentum right at that area. And if we further see a breakdown of the $11,730 area, a retest of structure, we want to be adding more position to our existing trade. So this is how I intend to trade the US tech during the New York session today. So let's see if price is going to move accordingly. Now, that is the first perspective I'm looking at here. Then the other scenario which I'm looking forward to is the structure here. Remember, we had this double bottom structure here, which we were expecting is going to push price to the upside. Remember, we had the structure identified on Monday. We saw the first touch. We saw the second touch of the $11,730 area before we witnessed that breakout of the neckline, where we were expecting the retest to structure to push price to the upside, which never happened. And now this structure here appears to be an area also we need to be looking at. So right now we had price break down that structure here yesterday during the New York session. Yesterday we saw breakdown of that structure, and we saw a sharp rejection of that level right now. So the question mark here is that, is price going to be going to the downside from here, or are we still going to be having a breakout retest to push price right back into the sell window before we start looking out for that selling opportunity? So this is a very big question mark we need to be asking ourselves at this point, because there is a likelihood that price could actually continue to reject this area before we start seeing movement to the downside. So let's scale down to the 15 minutes time frame and let's look at the current structure around this area to see if we can project anything tangible here. So scaling down to the 15 minutes time frame, what do we see here? So we saw this move, we saw this impulsive move after the retest of the structure. Sorry. So after the retest of the structure here, we saw this impulsive move right into the $11,730 area, which we identified earlier. We saw price move to the downside here. So now we are seeing another move going to the upside from this point. So one thing I'll be saying here is that if price does not break above this previous high here, then we might be seeing this as a reversal pattern that's likely going to be sending price going to the downside. So what I'll be doing here, if price does not break above this level, is to use a neckline of the structure here. If we have a structure here, let me give this a green color. So we have a structure here at the 11,600 area. So how this is going to help us is this: if price does not break above the $11,730 area, that is, we have a lower high here, then we cite a breakdown of this $11,600. Let's label this area $11,600 area. So if price breaks down this $11,600 area, remember, we don't get too excited. We want to wait for confirmations to happen in the form of a retest of the structure before we want to be joining the decline to the downside. So this is how we intend to trade this, and we'll be looking at our take profit. Remember, we still have our long-term take profit at the support level of the descending channel, which falls around the $11,250 and the $11,300 area. So let's see how price plays out in the New York session today, and let's be on standby to take advantage of that move. So like I've said, if price does not break above the $11,730 area, if price does not break above this level, then a break below this area, retest to structure, should give us a confirmation to sell the US tech. But if price breaks above the $11,730 area, then we want to be looking for selling opportunities right within the sell window area, which we have identified here, to take advantage of the sell momentum. So that is that on the US tech. If you have any questions regarding what I've just discussed so far, feel free to drop in your comments in the comment section, and let's see how I can be of help. So moving on, let's go on to talk about the next pair. The next pair we deliberated on yesterday was what? Let's see. Okay, the next pair we were looking at yesterday was the XAUUSD, that is the gold. And what happened on the gold? Well, the gold has continued to reject that demand zone in the last 24 hours now, and I'm already in the position right now after being taken out of my previous position yesterday. So let's quickly run through a replay of what our expectations were yesterday before we move into what we should be planning for today. So the first thing here is that we were at this point yesterday. I think we were around this area yesterday. I told you I took advantage of that move, and I told you that we should be looking forward to price coming back to do a retest of this area where we want to be looking for a bullish opportunity. So lo and behold, price came back to do a retest to structure, and we saw price climb to the upside. Price climbed to as far as the $1,686 area, which dovetailed to how many pips thereabouts? That was around 1,000 pips, 1,500 pips thereabout on this one. So if you are taking advantage of that move yesterday, kudos to you. And I'm sure you locked in your profits accordingly so that you didn't get stopped out at this with the current structure we have. So after the FOMC yesterday, we saw this sharp move to the downside and price came right back into that demand zone which we identified around the $1,655 area. And what has been happening in the last 24 hours is very significant. We saw multiple rejection of this level, giving us a clue into the strength of the buyers at this point. So before we go into the details of today, let's quickly run through the daily time frame and let's see what we were looking at from an IAS perspective before we scale down to what our expectation is going to be for today. So going up into the daily time frame. So what do we have on the daily time frame here? Well, in the short term, price has been bearish since the month of March. We have seen price continue to trend to the downside and we were able to connect a series of higher lows here to give us this resultant red dotted line. Now, in addition to that, it's also important that we take into consideration this bullish momentum that has been holding price action on the high side in the last 5 to 6 years now. Price has consistently respected this bullish trend line, but one other trend line I was able to identify here is the bullish trend line. And if you look at the bullish trend line here, you can see it was respected here in 2018. So we had it respected here in 2019 here, and the next time price respects that bullish trend line is sometime in the month of July. So we saw another rejection of that bullish trend line in the month of July here, and also we saw another rejection in the month of September, giving us a clue into the strength of this trend line. However, if we scale down to the 4 hours time frame, we begin to see things more clearly here. So on the 4 hours time frame, we saw this was the bullish trend line that was respected, that I showed you on the daily time frame. We saw the first touch here, we saw the second, we saw the third touch here before we witnessed the significant breakdown of that level in the during last week trading session. We saw the breakdown of that demand zone, giving us a clue into a momentum shift here as that demand zone was unable to hold that selling pressure anymore. So what did I do here? We identified a key level at the $1,700 area, looking forward to price coming back into that area to do a retest of structure. You know, from a technical perspective, whenever we cite a breakdown of structure like this, we expect that price is likely going to come back and do a retest of structure, after which we look out for patterns to join the decline to the downside. So now, is price really going to go back into the key level here? Hold on a second. Let me zoom into the current structure. Is price really going to go back into the key level here? That is a question that was a question we were asking ourselves at the beginning of the week. And when we zoom into the current structure here, we can see that since the breakdown of that key level, right into the $1,655 area, we have witnessed multiple rejection of that level by the buyers to give us a clue into the strength of the buyers at this point in the market. So with a multiple rejection of this area, definitely we want to be looking for buying opportunity right from that demand zone. So what did I do? I will be showing you in the 1 hour time frame. What did I do? I'll be showing you in the 1 hour time frame. So right from the demand zone here, we want to be looking for buying opportunity unless price breaks down that demand zone. That is, we see a significant breakdown of that demand zone, then we want to be looking for selling opportunities. But as long as price remains right above that demand zone, then definitely we want to be holding on to a bullish bias. And this bullish for me is more or less a temporary one, as this is likely going to be a retracement of that previous impulse leg that we have here. That is, price come back into the structure, after which we look out for patterns to join the decline. So it's more or less a temporary bullish trend line. So let's scale down to the 1 hour time frame and see how we could take advantage of that move. So right now on the 1 hour time frame, look at what happened in the last 24 hours. We saw this impulsive move to the downside. Price came right into the $11,656 area, and we saw multiple rejection evolving into a reversal pattern like this. Then we saw a breakout of the structure during the early hours of today. So with the breakout of structure, that is more or less a bullish signal here. This is the breakout of this $1,664 level. If we look at this level in the past, we can see how this level also has been a major determinant of price action. We can see, as you can see here, so now we have a breakout of that structure. So is this going to be a bullish momentum for us? So what we want to be doing now is to be patient. If you had actually missed that move here, we want to be patient to wait for price to give us further confirmation, which is likely going to come in the form of a retest of structure, after which we look out for patterns on lower time frame to join the rally to the upside. So this is how we intend to take advantage of this trade, and it appears price is already doing that retracement. So we are waiting for this retracement phase to end. How soon, how long is it going to take for this retracement phase to end is what we don't know. But one thing we want to know, we want to identify here, is a reversal pattern that will inform us of a possible trend continuation. So we have a reversal pattern, a breakout retest on lower time frame confirms that bullish momentum. So these are our expectations here. So let's scale down to the 15 minutes time frame so that we can identify a buy zone where we want to be looking for buying opportunity, and this is going to make our job easier during the New York session. So what we're going to do now is to take into consideration this impulsive move that happened yesterday, in the early hours of today. So we had this impulsive move to the upside here, and what we want to do is to bring out our Fibonacci retracement tool, run it through that impulse leg, and what are we going to be identifying? We are going to be identifying an area right within the 50 and the 78.6% area where we want to be looking for buying opportunity. So for the sake of clarity, we want to label this area the buy zone. So we have our buy zone right here, and then we give this a yellow color. So we have our buy zone here. So what are we waiting for? We are waiting for price to give us a signal, a structure here that supports a trend continuation. It could be a double bottom structure, it could be a inverse head and shoulder pattern, or a falling wedge. Whatever it is, breakout retest of structure gives us confirmation to join the rally to the upside. So this is what we are looking forward to on the XAUUSD, and price appears to be moving in that direction. We already have a test of the 50% retracement. So let's see if we are going to have a higher low, or is it going to be a breakdown? If it's a breakdown, then we want to wait for a higher low to happen, which is likely going to transpose into an inverse head and shoulder pattern before we join the rally to the upside. So let's be patient enough on this one. Let's see what happens within this buy zone, which is likely going to take about at least a minimum of 2 hours for that structure to evolve. So let's see and be patient enough to be able to take advantage of that move. So that is that on the XAUUSD. So moving on, we move on to the CHFJPY, where I was able to take my profit here yesterday. I'm very sure you did as well. Remember, we've been expecting the sell momentum on the CHFJPY, but it did not happen, and we were stopped out at one point in time, but price has continued to push to the downside on this one. So let's quickly look at the replay of what our expectations were yesterday. And where were we yesterday? We were around this point yesterday. Where were we? I think we were around here. Was it? Okay, we were around here yesterday. And remember what I told you yesterday? I said that we identified the sell window after identifying a reversal pattern here. So we said, okay, fine, let's wait for selling opportunities right within the sell window. And we noticed that since in the last 72 hours, price has consistently rejected this area, giving us high hopes of a selling momentum from here. However, I made mention of an entry level where we should be looking forward to. I said if price, considering the sell window we have here, if price breaks below the 149 Japanese yen area, then we want to be looking to sell right below this level. Remember, we had this sign here. So what happened yesterday? We saw price break below that level actually, and then we saw multiple rejection to push price up and taking me out of my position with a loss of about 51 pips thereabout on this one. And immediately price started coming back to the downside. Sorry, when price broke above this area, I got stopped out, and what I did was to place a pending order right below the 149 area. And what happened afterward was very, very emphatic, as we saw this bearish impulsive move that took price right down into the take profit target at around the 146.300 area, dovetailing to about 270 pips thereabout. So if you are taking advantage of that move, kudos to you for identifying that opportunity. Kudos to you for being on standby to take advantage of that move. So right now that we have the scenario that we have played out here, how do we intend to take advantage of trading opportunity? That is, for those who are actually missed this move yesterday, is the market going to give us another opportunity to trade the CHFJPY for this week? Yes. Let's quickly look at what is happening on the higher time frame and how did we actually get to this point where we were looking for selling opportunity. So scaling up to the daily time frame, obviously we had a very strong bullish momentum, and the most important area was the supply zone that I identified here. As you can see, our price has consistently rejected that area since the month of June. We saw the first touch here of the supply zone here. We saw another one in the month of July, and sometime in the month of August too, we saw the multiple rejection of that level, after which a breakout of that structure happened during the first days of this month. And with the breakout of that structure happen, we saw our price move to as far as the 150.800 area. We saw our price move to that area, and since then we have been witnessing multiple rejection of that level to give us a clue of a possible retracement move of this impulsive move to the upside. So that is that. And one thing we also know from a technical standpoint is that whenever we have a breakout of structure like this, we expect that price is likely going to come back and give us a retest of that structure, which incited our bearish expectation for this week, after which we want to be looking for buying opportunities from this area. And if we look closely into the structure, we can see this is the breakout of the supply zone, and you can see that the breakout of the supply zone also shares a confluence with the bullish trend line that we identified earlier. So definitely we want to see if price is going to come back into this area and reject this area to push price to the upside, or we might be having a breakdown of this level, retest to send price going to the downside. So we don't know what is going to happen anyway, but we want to wait for price to come within this area, and let us look out for patterns that will support a trend continuation to the upside, or a pattern that will support a breakdown of that structure. So in that regard, we scaled down to the 4 hours time frame, where we identified a reversal pattern here on the CHFJPY. So we went on to the 4 hours time frame, and what did we see on the 4 hours time frame? We saw this impulsive move. Price came to the 150.700 area. We saw multiple rejection of this level before price moved into our neckline, which we identified here at the 148.700 area. Remember, we had the 148.700 area here, and then we saw price climb up again, but was unable to break the previous high here, hereby finding a higher low, resulting into an evolution into a reversal pattern after the breakdown of the 148.700 area. So since the beginning of the week, what did we do? We identified a sell window here, where we said we are going to be looking for selling opportunity right below the 149 area to take advantage of that trend, and lo and behold, that happened accordingly. So right now that we are out of this trade, and if you are still in this trade anyways, you want to be moving your stop loss. Well, there are some people that will still be in this trade and probably be moving their stop loss accordingly as price continue to move in their favor. But personally, I'm out of this trade, and I'm not sure if there's going to be another opportunity before we get into the structure. We are waiting to look out for buying opportunity. So this is where we are looking for buying opportunity here, both this area. So we are looking for buying opportunity around this here. So let's scale down to the 1 hour time frame, and let's see if we could actually see an opportunity to trade here for today. So we scale down to the 1 hour time frame, and let's see what's happening here. So on the 1 hour time frame, what do we have? So we already have a breakdown of that structure here. Is there a possibility that price will come back into the structure today? Well, that is something that is not very likely. If price comes back into that structure, then we might be looking forward to added more position to our existing trade. But with the current structure I'm seeing right now, I'm not sure that is going to happen, as it appears price will continue to go to the downside into that structure which was broken during the first day of this month. So let's see how price goes. If price comes into this area now, the only way we want to trade the CHFJPY is to wait for price to come within the 144 Japanese yen area and the 142 area, after which we want to be looking out for reversal patterns on lower time frame or on this time frame to join the rally to the upside. So let's see how price plays out on the CHFJPY for today, after which we want to be taking advantage of that bullish momentum, considering the long-term bullish perspective we have here on the CHFJPY. So that is that on the CHFJPY, and let's move on to the USDJPY, which is going to be the last pair for today. Like I said, if you have questions, feel free to drop in your inquiries in the comment section. So we move on to USDJPY, where I took advantage. I actually took profit on the USDJPY yesterday on that bullish momentum here. Remember, we had this bullish opportunity running yesterday. So let's see where we were yesterday. Okay, let's see. So we were around here yesterday, we were around this point yesterday, and remember we took advantage of this move right at the breakout retest of the structure here. We saw the breakout, we saw the multiple rejection of this area, after which we took advantage of this move right above the 143.900 area. And yesterday I told you that if price breaks above very well and price comes back to do a retest of structure, we want to be joining another rally, and that is what happened. That's how my second position came into existence. We saw the breakout of that structure, price came right above this level to hit my take profit target on my first trade, and then we saw this sharp move to the downside, and I decided multiple rejection on the lower time frame, and lo and behold, we joined and took another profit at about 160 pips around here. So if you are taking advantage of that move, kudos to you. So in that regard, I would like to delete this one at this point, as it is no longer relevant. So now going into the New York session today, how do we intend to trade the USDJPY? But before I go into the details of how I intend to trade the USDJPY for today, let's quickly run through an holistic perspective on the higher time frame, and let's see how we got to this point and how we use the structure we identified on the daily time frame to identify a trading opportunity. So on the daily time frame, it is very obvious we've been on a very strong bullish momentum on the USDJPY, and we had this bullish trend line to guide our actions. And one thing we also observed during the month of July was this double bottom structure that incited this strong impulsive move to the upside. So we saw the double bottom structure here. Price broke out of the neckline at the 135 Japanese yen, a very strong key level, and since then price has continued to rise to as far as the 145 Japanese yen area. And what did we notice when price tested the 145 Japanese yen area? Well, what we noticed was that price has consistently rejected that level by the sellers. So every attempt by the buyers to push price right above that level has been met with stiff resistance. And if we notice, since price broke out of the neckline here, we have not seen a retest of that structure. And from a technical standpoint, whenever we sight a breakout of structure like this, we expect that price will come back and do a retest of structure, after which we look out for patterns to join the trend continuation. But that is yet to happen. And if we look at the neckline here, it also shares a confluence with the key level at the 135 Japanese yen, which is more or less a very strong level that we want to be looking for a retest of structure to join the rally. But since then, this has not happened. So this called our attention to looking at what is really happening within the structure here. So in order to do that, we scale down to the 4 hours time frame, and on the 4 hours time frame, we begin to see that sellers were actually pushing against any buying pressure at the 145 Japanese yen area, and in this regard, we were able to identify a supply zone around that area. As you can see, we can see multiple rejection. We saw the first touch, we saw another one in the month of September, that is last week. We saw another one, and then we saw another one in the last 24 hours, giving us a clue into the strength of the sellers at this point. And in addition to this supply zone here, we identified the neckline at the 142.500 area, and also we also had a temporary bullish trend line that has been holding price action in the last last 4 to 5 months. Now we saw this bullish trend line as price has consistently respected that bullish trend line. As you can see, price has consistently respected that bullish trend line. We've been having buy pressure from the 142.500 area, but it appears that level has been broken by the sellers. And in addition to the breakdown of that level, we can see that the bullish trend line also has been broken, giving us a bearish signal. And whenever we cite a signal like this, remember, we don't want to get too excited, as we want to wait for confirmations to happen before we want to be joining that momentum. So what do we have here in the last 24 hours? We saw price break down that bullish trend line, also breaking down that neckline to give us the signal of a bearish momentum. So what are we going to be looking forward to in the New York session today? Are we going to see price continue to the downside from here, probably a breakdown retest of the structure to send price crashing to the downside? That is one scenario. Or is price going to come back to as far as retesting that bullish trend line that was broken yesterday, after which structures on lower time frame will support a trend continuation to the downside? Remember, we're still looking towards this bullish trend line and the key level as a take profit target on a long-term perspective. So let's see if that is going to be possible in the nearest future. So before we scale down to the 1 hour time frame, let's extend this bearish trend line further out a little bit. We can see how this level has been respected. You see the first touch here since the beginning of the month, though we saw a sharp breakout of that structure, but price came back below that level to continue to respect it, and we saw a breakout. Then right now we have a breakdown of that structure. So what are we going to be looking forward to now? Like I said earlier, is price going to respect it, which also shares a confluence with the neckline to push price to the downside, or are we going to be having price climb right above that level back into the bullish trend line, where a reversal pattern will be sending price going to the downside? So let's scale down to the 1 hour time frame so that we can see things more clearly and mark out how we intend to trade. So now we are right on the 1 hour time frame, and the most important parameter we want to be using here on the 1 hour time frame is this impulsive move to the downside. This one here, we had this impulsive move to the downside yesterday, so we want to be using this as our yardstick, and what we're going to be doing is to identify the golden zone area, which is going to be our sell window going forward. So bring out our Fibonacci retracement tool, run it through the previous impulse leg here, and we're going to be looking at somewhere between the 50 and the 70.6% so as our sell window here. So let's look at this area. So we have our sell window right within this point. That is right within, let me delete this, we no longer need this. So right within the 143.29, is it 143.300 and the 145 area? So this is what we are going to be looking forward to now. We are going to be looking forward to price coming back to do coming back within the sell window here to look out for opportunities to sell the USDJPY. So this is what I'm looking forward to on the New York session today. So let's see what's going to happen if price is going to break above this neckline, the 142.500 area, to push price to the upside. If that is going to be happening, then we look out for selling opportunities right within this area. However, if price choose not to go that far anymore, can we join the sell momentum right below the 142 area here? That's a very good question, but the only way we can get to know that, let's scale down to the 15 minutes time frame and look at what the structure here is giving us, and let's see if we could have a structure that will support a trend continuation from below the 142.500 level. So going down to the 15 minutes time frame here, what do we have? So since the impulsive move to the downside, since we witnessed this move to the downside here, we have seen price come back above that neckline area, and we have been seeing this move to the downside here. So it's still really very dicey here. So what we want to be looking forward to is this: if we have a reversal pattern around this area, then we want to be looking forward to a breakdown, retest of structure to join the decline. But if that does not happen and price climbs up that 142.500 area, then let's wait for price to come within the sell window we identified on the 1 hour time frame to join the decline to the downside. So that is how we intend to trade the USDJPY. So let's see how price action plays out during the New York session today. So on this note, I want to call it a day, but before I do, let's quickly do a recap of what we did today. So the first pair we looked at today was the US oil, and what was our expectation on the US oil? Yeah, we were expecting a bullish momentum, and the reason why we're expecting a bullish momentum was simply because of the multiple rejection of the demand zone at the $83 area. We saw since the beginning of the week, price has consistently rejected that level. We can see we saw multiple rejection of that level since the beginning of the week. And one thing I said here this morning is that after looking at this impulsive move yesterday as a result of the FOMC that happened, we saw price action evolving into a reversal pattern here, and as a result of that, we identified the $83.50 area as a key level, as a yardstick for us to take advantage of a bullish momentum. So we started this bullish signal, and I told you a breakout of this $83.50 level is a signal for us, and if a retest of structure happens, we should be taking advantage of that move right above the $83.50. And right now, price has moved in our favor. It has moved right above that $83.50 level. Remember, our take profit target still remains right within the $86 area and the $87 area. And the reason why we are having our take profit target within that area is simply because of the key level that we identified on the daily time frame. And this key level has been a major determinant for quite some time. And let's see how price is going to relate with this level to decide if we are still going to continue to the upside, or we are going to be having multiple rejection of this area to push price to the downside, or probably we're going to be having a breakout retest to push price to the upside. So let's wait for this area. Let's see price come into this area in the meantime, which will be giving us about 300 pips thereabout. So that's how we intend to trade the US oil for today. Then we went on to talk about the US tech. On the US tech, we were able to make some profits yesterday as we took about 370 pips thereabout on this one. And for today, we were actually looking out for selling opportunities again. And where we were looking out for selling opportunities is right within the $11,780 area and the $11,950 area, which is more or less the retracement, the golden zone of the previous impulse leg here. So what we are saying here is that we want to see this move that has climbed up here as a retracement of this impulse leg right back into the sell window here, where we want to be looking out for selling opportunities to join the decline to the downside. However, I was able to identify a structure at the $11,730 area, which was more or less a significant level during the early days of this week. We saw our buyers push price from this area, and yesterday we witnessed the breakdown of that structure, and it appears we had a sharp rejection of that level here. So what I was saying is that if price does not climb above this level right back into the sell window here, then definitely we want to be looking for reversal patterns on the lower time frame to join the decline to the downside from this point. And in that regard, we scaled down to the 50-minute time frame to look out for structures. So like I showed you on the 50-minute time frame, after the retest of the resistant level of this descending channel here, we saw price climb right back into this area. And I told you that if we don't see price break above the previous high here, then this might likely transpose into a reversal pattern in the form of a double top structure, which we'll be waiting for that signal in the form of a breakdown of the $11,600 area, after which we look out for confirmation to join the decline. Remember, if that signal happens, we are not getting too excited. We want to wait for confirmations to happen in the form of a retest of structure before we join the decline to the downside. So that is how we intend to trade the US tech for today, and our take profit target remains right within the $11,300 and the $11,200 area, which is the support level of this descending channel we identified earlier on in the week. Now we moved on to talk about the gold, and on the gold we're still expecting that price should come within our buy zone here within the 11,000, sorry, between the $1,660 area and the $1,667 area. And the reason why we are looking for buy opportunity from this point is simply because of the structure we witnessed since the later part of last week's trading session. We saw after the breakdown of the $1,700 area during the course of last week's trading session here, we saw the breakdown of that structure here. Hold on a second, let me show you. So we saw the breakdown of the $1,700 area here, and since the breakdown of that structure, price has consistently rejected the $1,655 area. We can see how buyers have been pushing price to the upside from this area, so giving us a clue into the strength of the buyers at this point in the market. So in that regard, we're looking to buy right above that demand zone. As long as price remains above the demand zone, we want to keep on buying. But if price breaks down the demand zone, then we want to see this as a momentum shift, as the ability to break down this area shows the strength of the sellers, taking out all the buy positions here. But remember, we don't want to get too excited, as we want to wait for confirmations to happen in the form of a retest or structure before we join the decline. So that is how we intend to trade. And for the buy opportunity here, we already identify a buy zone here, remember, and we said anywhere within this area seems most appropriate to be buying the XAUUSD. We had the breakout here during the early hours of today. Let me show you. So we had the breakout of the structure, that is the $1,664 area, and we expect price to come within the buy zone here, where we look out for buying opportunity to join the rally to the upside. So this is what we are looking forward to, with the take profit target sitting right around the $1,700 area. Remember, we identified this key level at the $1,700 area, which was an area where price broke last week, and we expect that we want to see how price is going to relate to that level. Are we going to be having another rejection to send price going to the downside from there, or we could be having a breakout of structure to send price going to the upside? So we want to see how price is going to relate to this level before we will be taking another decision. So in that regard, we are placing our take profit target right around that area. So we moved on to talk about the CHFJPY, where we were able to take some profits yesterday. Personally, I made about 270 pips here. And going into the New York session today, I said we already have the breakdown of that structure here. We already cite the breakdown of the structure here. And from a technical standpoint, we might be looking forward to price coming back to do a retest of the structure, after which we look out for selling opportunities. But with the current structure we have here, and considering the strong impulsive move to the downside here, I'm thinking that it might not be likely, but we never can tell. Price could actually move that far before it starts going to the downside. But one thing I said here on the CHFJPY is that we want to be looking for buying opportunity right around the $144 area. And the reason why that is, I'll scale up to the 4 hours time frame to show you. So we had the supply zone that was broken during the first days of this month, and then we expect that price is likely going to come back and do a retest of the structure to give us that confirmation to join the trend continuation to the upside. So let's see how this is going to move. Personally, I've closed my profit. I've taken my profit on CHFJPY, and I said for those who are still in this trade, you can be moving your stop loss accordingly and continue to guide price action right into that area I showed you on the higher time frame. Now we went to close the day with the USDJPY, and on the USDJPY, after taking a couple of profits yesterday to the upside, we saw this impulsive move to the downside, and because of this, we said we're looking for selling opportunities. Remember, we've been expecting the selling opportunities since the beginning of the week as buyers continue to push price to the upside. But lo and behold, we witnessed the breakdown of that bullish trend line during the course of yesterday's trading session after the FOMC, and we saw that breakdown giving us a clue into the strength of the sellers at this point. So what we are saying here is that since we have this impulsive move to the downside, we wait for price to give us a point of entry within the sell window here, where we look out for patterns on lower time frame to join the decline to the downside. And like I said, if price decides not to go as far as the sell window which we have identified here, then we scale down to the 15 minutes time frame to look at how price action is relating to this key level at the 142. Is it 142? Let me see. I think 142.700, I guess. Hold on a second. Let's look at it. Okay, 142.500 area. So we want to see how price action is relating to this level. So we scale down to the 15 minutes time frame here. And what did we see here? We saw price climb up this key level. So we saw price climb up this key level. So I said if we have a reversal pattern here, then we want to be looking to take advantage of that sell momentum. Remember, we want to see that signal break out of structure, retest to structure, then we can join the decline to the downside. So this is how we intend to trade the USDJPY for today. So on this note, I want to call it a day. I really appreciate every moment we share with you guys, and I hope you are ready and on standby and well equipped to take advantage on any perspective that can be lining up for us during the New York session today. And remember, we don't want to get too excited whenever we sight a signal. We want to wait for price action to give us that confirmation before we join the rally or decline, if the case may be. And if a confirmation does not happen, that is, if a retest of structure does not happen, kindly pass that trade. There are lots and lots of opportunities in the market that we could actually take advantage of. So thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow as we come here again to look at the financial market against the New York session for tomorrow. So on this note, I wish you best of luck and bye bye.